Farcaster is being heavily compared to the early days of Facebook. And they released a new feature this week, which basically allows
Farcaster.
So what is it?
I think it was this huge light bulb moment for the whole industry. A slight window into what the future of social media could look like. And Facebook took all of that away.
That up, Catman. Mess that up.
When we first launched, we were hoping for, maybe 400, 500 people.
I see you dropping partnerships with some pretty top-tier luxury brands.
A few weeks ago, Gucci reached out to me and we partnered on
This week's Memes and Machines. This is a deep dive into social media. The new social media app that is blowing up right now, and you've still probably never heard of it. We talk about Catty's experience getting a brand deal with a luxury fashion house and the process he went through and what others can learn from that experience. This podcast called Memes and Machines. We dive into memes and their relevance for marketeers. We talk about the term full stack creators. What does that even mean? We dive into Capcut, AI, out of home. How do we go from Capcut to out of home? I don't know, but we did. And to conclude, we share our favourite creative principles and frameworks that will, in Catty's word, 50x your advertising.
listen to see Ollie Yonchev find out in real time that I don't follow him on Instagram.
Catman, good to see you.
Great to see you, man. How you doing? I was saying you were looking fresh.
Yeah, thank you. You know me, I like a compliment. Looking fresh and feeling fresh, they are not the same thing. But I'll take looking fresh.
How's your week been?
By my rant there, you can probably tell I've had a long day. Actually, a really fulfilling day. I went to share to Google today. I went to speak to the enterprise teams at Google, the leaders there, about AI. And I infrequently suffer with imposter syndrome because I often overestimate my abilities and are not short of confidence. However, walking into Google to speak to them about AI, considering 70% of the world's engineering and academic talent passes through the walls at Google at some point, was rather intimidating. However, it went really well and it was energizing and a great session, and it forced me to really think a little harder about my understanding of a topic. I've been I'm a technology enthusiast, so I passively pursue interests like this that help in a professional endeavor. However, I really realized that I need to get into the weeds. If I want to achieve mastery, I'm going to have to dive into some of the aspects, the technical aspects of the technology that I maybe wouldn't do unless you were working as a developer or such. But really good day, long day. When we record these, it's your afternoon, it's my evening. So, How about you?
What's one thing you learned?
One thing I learned. So one thing I learned, or I don't know if I learned this, but I've reaffirmed my understanding of the role of AI in marketing. So we spoke last week and you used a phrase about great AI being invisible. We were talking about generative AI somewhat becoming ubiquitous, and suddenly it loses value as a consequence of that. And the more I thought about that statement, it really challenged me to think, okay, well, where do we invest our energy and time? And it's really about leveraging technology to do better marketing. But the goal is always better marketing. The how we do that may be completely enthused with AI. So that was number one that going through this process to go a little deeper on my keynote, etc., was important. The second thing is I went down a real rabbit hole of trying to get some concrete predictions around what we're going to see this year. And one I have maybe a lot of confidence in is the progress we will make with AI being multimodal. And multimodal, for anyone that isn't aware, is whereby machine learning can write, it can see, it can hear, and as a consequence of being multimodal, it means language is no longer a barrier. You can take crude images of things and rationalize it and turn it into data that can be then used and analyzed, and it just removes all the friction out of many of the marketing processes, whether it's insights, market research, the creative process, media planning, you name it, it takes a lot of the friction out. And one of the things that I think we will see breakthroughs in will be introducing video into these models, which video, if you think of it as a language, is quite complex. There are many layers to video. So it feels like within the field, there has been significant progress. And on the rumor mill of Reddit and other speculative areas on the internet, it feels that there is some incredible products about to be launched in video. So yeah, that's another thing that I think I have a bit more conviction in. So it anchors me to where we at Flight Story need to spend some time and energy and understanding, and then figuring out how do we apply all these new capabilities to our own workflow and internal clients.
Amazing. Sounds like a great experience.
You sounded sarcastic there, dude.
No, I'm legit.
I feel like there's like a honey trap in this. You're going, hey, you look fresh. Sounds fascinating. Is this AI catbot? Is this actually Catty?
To be honest, mate, I've had my head out of AI maybe the last couple of weeks. I think it's good to take a break from it. So I'm genuinely interested to hear what's new. But no, I've been deep in the depths of Web3 social media past week. So probably on the other end of the innovation curve to you.
Yes, I remember Catty predicts Farcaster, the next big thing in social media, the thing that you have never heard of. Tell us what's happening.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting week. And Farcaster, which I described, I explained, we spoke about probably a few episodes back now, has already started to get really exciting traction. The kind of daily active users has started to blow up this week. And it's because they added a really interesting feature which really highlights the unique capabilities of building a social network on top of blockchain. So for a quick recap, Farcaster is basically like Twitter, but instead of being built on a private server in the way Twitter is, it's built on blockchain. And it's a public server, which means that anybody can build clients or applications on top of the network. So somebody could build like a different kind of front end. Somebody can build a scheduling app. Somebody could build, a video streaming platform that uses the same technology, and they wouldn't need permission from Farcaster in the way that Twitter requires developers to. And they released a new feature this week, which basically allows developers to build mini apps within the posts themselves. So you could actually go on your feed and you can find a game of chess. So we saw somebody built they're called frames. So you imagine they're kind of like little windows within the social feed, and somebody could play a game of chess. Another person built an app where you could order cookies. You could buy cookies and actually transact, again, using crypto from within the app. So you don't actually leave the page. You do it from within the app. Somebody built one which was a predictor. There was a football game that evening. You could predict the score, come back later and see how many people predicted the right score, and they pay out crypto to the correct winner. And this is all made possible because the infrastructure allows developers to build on top of their existing infrastructure without permission from the the original team. And I think it was this huge light bulb moment for the whole industry. The kind of crypto community has flooded to Farcaster, where they've had record high daily active users day after day since they launched this on Friday. And it was a slight window into what the future of social media could look like, where you have these novel experiences that are uniquely enabled by blockchain. And, if you could extrapolate this through to, imagine you're a big brand and you're running a Super Bowl ad.
Yeah.
Perhaps you could have some kind of mini game that exists within the user's feed, or you could sell your products. Let's say Pepsi run a Super Bowl ad. You could have a button that allows people to claim a free Pepsi and have it delivered to their door without ever leaving that social network. And so it's just this really unique. I think it's very easy for me to sit here and explain it, but it's very hard to actually grasp, what that actually feels like. The only way I can really, or the only way anyone can really feel the energy around this, the excitement around this, is to actually go sign up to Farcaster and browse the frames that people have made, which I encourage anyone to do. But it is just like a social experience I've never seen before. And I think it's the first time that, or one of the first times that blockchain technologies are unlocking a internet experience, which A, is unique to blockchain, so it couldn't be done without it, and B, you have no idea you're interacting with blockchain. It's completely obscured. And I think that's, again, super important.
Yeah, there's so many elements there that I think are fascinating. As you were describing that, my mind went to the, I suppose, now absent word metaverse. When I think we all came to a conclusion that the metaverse wasn't ultimately a singular place or destination, but a reiteration of the internet that was more immersive, or a philosophical point where our digital worlds mean more. That was commonly understood of the two paths the metaverse could take shape. But as you start to describe new user cases and new possibilities and new experiences that are completely revolutionary, I go, okay, well, this starts to lay the fabric of something new. And we're seeing this across every sector. And I always think when you describe something for the first time, everybody's first reaction should be one, almost an allergic reaction. Well, that sounds silly, because every wonderful idea usually does feel a little odd at first. I remember my first interaction with Musical.ly, later TikTok. I was like, what the fuck is this place? So random. But you start to become conditioned and understand that actually this has a distinctive and unique place in our world. Equally, what you're describing with Farcaster sounds the same. And I'm a big believer, or I'm a big enthusiast, where builders and developers and creatives all converge. I think you can truly make things revolutionary. And that's what fascinates me about these spaces, where the early adopters really are the people that build the internet. And they're probably the people really on the fringe.
Yeah, I think there are two concepts that are at play here, which is, the first is that the next big thing probably feels and looks like a toy to begin with.
Yep.
Like you said, this is Frames and Farcaster is being heavily compared to the early days of Facebook, where similarly developers could come on and build these mini Facebook apps and games. So do you remember Farmville? And
Yep.
remember personality quizzes that everybody was playing on Facebook? That was developers coming on and making the Facebook experience better without any involvement of Facebook. And Facebook took all of that away because they wanted better commercial.
Fuck that up, Catman. Mess that up. Politicians. Really? Remember the big scandal, the big data scandal.
Is that what that was? Is that what Cambridge Analytica was?
Yeah, Cambridge Analytica. That's what that was. They were using the free market to take our data and serve us political ads that are hyper-personalized and targeted towards us. Now, Cambridge Analytica was a scapegoat, but it was a catalyst moment for new legislation and tightening up those policies. I do wonder, actually, that does raise a question. As I just said that out loud, I go, the blockchain the reason the evangelists promise a fairer, democratized, independent internet that is powered by the blockchain. And then you have the government control, capitalism. Do you think, being really honest, in, let's say, the adoption curve of a place like Farcaster, do you think something like this that maybe starts so magically and so authentically, do you think it can withstand the constraints of capitalism?
I mean, the whole point, I think the interesting thing with something like Farcaster is that the creators of Farcaster aren't going to be the ones that benefit from the financial effects of its growth. Instead, it's going to be the builders and developers who build apps on top of Farcaster, right? And so, like, the theory is that because there is this more equitable economic incentivization across the ecosystem, you're going to see more innovation and you're going to see better apps. Whereas with something like Facebook and their ecosystem, you are relying on one entity to call all the shots and make all the decisions and build the tools and the apps we use today. Now, like, that theory could be wrong. There is a lot of people who believe that actually corporations are better positioned to find innovation and to build a better product. But the theory of the Farcaster users and the early adopters of this are actually together we can build a better product, and it's impossible for something like a data scandal to happen because everything is public. The users control the information they give away. So I think a lot of people didn't realize that when they were doing which Sex and the City character are you on Facebook, they didn't realize that 10, 15 years later, they're being served an ad for a baby stroller because of answers they gave in a quiz 10, 15 years ago, right? Like, I think that there's this control that these new Web3 social users now have over their data. And I use Farcaster without giving any data away. No, it doesn't know my name. It doesn't know where I live. And I feel better about that experience. And most people won't care about that. They won't think about that. They will when they stop receiving a lot of junk mail that somebody has sold, on their behalf, which we're probably past the point of no return there. But there's a lot to dig into, but we're still very early days.
Catman, what's your username on Farcaster?
Catty.
Catty. Well, I think it's a bit of a giveaway. Anyone does a deep dive on the internet, bit of identity.
I don't mind people knowing who I am. I'm not anonymous. I'm not pseudonymous there. But what they can't do is my address can't end up in a database that gets sold to someone because my address. If somebody really wanted to find out who I was and find out where I lived, they could. That's fine. What's happened with Facebook is that I have no control where some of my deepest personal information is being sold in bulk. So,
fight the good fight. I'm into it.
Fight the good fight.
Catty, I have a bone to pick with you.
Go.
I'm following your meme page, pathetic fashion.
Yep.
And I see you dropping partnerships with some pretty top-tier luxury brands. Talk to me.
What's the bone to pick? You're not happy with it?
Well, I have a bone to pick. You don't follow me. That bothers me. But
I thought you.
I love how, like, we know how trivial that is, but it bothers all of us.
I thought you'd recognize an outfit you wore on the page, and you were upset that I made a meme about you.
I did like your share the other day where you self-roasted someone roasting you because they'd seen a picture of you and like had a go at your fashion senses.
Well, so I get a lot of friends who I'll make a meme about some fashion item and they wear it and they'll send it me and go, "Why this isn't fair. Like don't because." And I explain, do you realize that half of these memes are autobiographical? These are all memes about stuff that I wear. Like I am the subject of these things. People don't realize that I get my content from me because I know I'm the demographic. Anyway, yeah, I had a bit of a full circle moment. I spoke to a Chinese trends magazine a few weeks ago about how luxury fashion brands were using meme pages to reach Gen Z customers. And they asked me, who was the first brand you ever saw, luxury fashion brand you ever saw do memes? And it was Gucci. Gucci was the first brand I saw probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And then a few weeks ago, Gucci reached out to me and we partnered on a meme for their spring-summer collection of this year. So the idea was they had catwalks walking the model. They sent me the pictures. I went off and created some memes about it, posted it on my channel. And they actually worked with a few other accounts as well. So a few accounts that had kind of similar followings to me. Some of them were meme pages. Some of them were just digital creators who were also in the kind of fashion space. And I think it's just this incredible moment where we're seeing some of the most prestigious 100-plus-year-old brands who are usually so careful with their brand positioning and have so many rules and regulations around how their brand is presented. We're now seeing these brands really break down these barriers and work with pages who, 3 posts earlier, I might be trashing one of their competitors or I might be trashing them. There's like 2 memes ago, I'd actually put a full Gucci tracksuit in one of my memes as a criticism of what new money people wear. And so I think it's really interesting that previously, having worked with big brands like that, they would never have allowed this to stand. And I think I thought a lot about it, and I realized that it's quite simple, really. The people who, so I worked with their social media team, and they're all people who are my age. They have very similar, professional backgrounds to me. They consume the same media as me. They follow my page personally. And so when they are asked by their senior, brand managers, how do we reach young people? They go to the people they follow. And I think we're seeing this now where the people in senior social positions, for the first time because of their ages, are now people who really grew up with this kind of meme culture, with new media, and with creators who may not have aligned with their brand values in the past. And I think it's a lesson for all big brands to start to rethink, am I overthinking how my brand should be presented? And should I just be turning up where my customers are, which is, following pages like mine?
I think the context really matters, in the sense that everything about your particular meme page is self-deprecating in many respects. So it's authentic for you on one hand to kind of leverage the cultural currency of a Gucci and say this is like ridiculous, because high-end fashion has its moments of craziness. It's deep-rooted in extremes, many respects. But equally, they can acknowledge that you can celebrate them in another way. So I think if you think of that partnership, it's very authentic. Where I would say you cross a line for a brand is my first foundation of working with any partnership or any creator or any influencer is always, do they use your product? And do they actually like you? And that's, for most companies, not part of the qualifying criteria. You work with creators that you have bias towards, the team selecting them work with them, the agency have bias towards them that have recommended them, or they fit a certain profile. But fundamentally, the first barrier should be one of authenticity, because great partnerships are always rooted in that truth. You can come out and explicitly say, I'm being paid this amount by Gucci to do this. And if you have a clever play on that, you can still deliver that message with high impact and it can work. So I think that's the distinction. Context always matters. It actually, in a world void of context, when, you will take a 1-hour podcast and turn it into a 1-sentence tweet, or you take the headlines, in a world largely void, when context is relevant, I think it can work. There is a second point that you raise around a shift in, I suppose, a shift in mentality is what I admire about luxury is they were once deep rooted in an old way of thinking, meaning I suppose they were dictated to by art direction, and there was a certain prestige and there was certain boundaries that they wouldn't cross. And now they recognize to be bottom up, and they're trying to participate in culture in a way that's kind of grassroots up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean there isn't space for the extremely cinematic, polished, art-directed work that shows up in certain ways, but I do think we have to look. And I would say an underpinning point is we have too many examples of companies that are, let's say, unhinged on social media. It's the most extreme version of that brand personality or those brand identifiers. And we have so many cases of that just creating breakthrough moments for businesses. Ryanair, I say this all the time, but Ryanair get more online attention, earned attention, than every single airline combined. Put that into context. All the airlines together don't get more attention than this small but mighty, unhinged, self-aware, culturally relevant, extreme social media team. You will hear the same of Duolingo, you hear the same of Liquid Death. And I get two thoughts off the back of that. One is the evolving role of a social media team. I heard the term full stack creators on one hand, and I thought, that's a really good embodiment of what we should be looking for in our social media teams. And full stack creative was just the definition of you don't have a different person driving the consumer insight. You don't have a different person then creating the asset. You then don't have the person that's scheduling that and reporting. It's one person that goes end to end. And I feel like we've come full circle where historically, when the young person in the office was the social media person, they would have to do every single job. And then we got to the point where social media teams arguably became bloated and you'd have a person per channel, et cetera, and we get domain authority. And it almost feels now that as we converge this kind of short form attention battle from TikTok to Reels to Shorts and beyond, it feels like the skill of 2024 is that full stack creator. Get someone who can do everything.
I would say that to get the volume that you need to succeed on social, you'd have to find a pretty exceptional candidate to be able to do all those roles. And maybe that's where AI now is coming in and allowing someone to have the output of a full stack creative team. I think the key point there is, especially when it comes to ads, like paid ad creative, having somebody who is as close to the creative process as possible when they need to create multiple feedback loops, they need to create multiple iterations and tests. When you have a big kind of assembly line for your content creation, it's kind of really difficult to make those small incremental changes. You feel it in a big team where, someone who's running the ads, they need like 10 different creatives, 10 copies. It's very difficult to work with 5-6 people to get that and be able to test as quickly and as quick as you need to get to the right answer. And so a full stack creative team, and maybe it's not one single person, right? Maybe it's a pair of two people, a designer and a copywriter, or a creative and an executor is all you need. But I agree that small teams can actually execute better than a bigger team now.
Well, you need sparring partners. You need people that can help you go from 0 to 1. You need sounding boards for creativity to thrive. Creativity is almost paradoxical in the nature of it's often found in solitude with clarity, and equally it's often found in dialogue, immersed in conversation with someone, right? And it seems those two ends of the spectrum are where creativity lives. I will say, I don't know, have you used Capcut before, personally, just to create content?
I've used something called Veed, which I think is the same thing. It's a browser editing tool.
Yeah, so
right?
so Capcut is
Capcut.
basically Capcut is a ByteDance product, so TikTok sister company, you could argue. And it's a mobile application. You edit all on mobile, everything, and it's just filled with templates. And probably 5 out of every trending thing that permeates the internet or style or editing style will originate from Capcut. I believe it's the number one app and has been in the App Store for some time. Completely not verified that, but I did read somewhere that it's had a pretty significant spike, certainly in the creative function. And what I will say is I agree on the point that small teams can now achieve things with resources and tools that previously were thought unthinkable. We now have so many aids. But I look at, to be great, and I'm speaking specifically at organic social, and I think if you're great at organic social, you inherently end up being optimally better for, or you end up being highly effective at paid as a consequence. I do believe that getting closer to source, I think is the phrase you used, is probably the most important thing. And as a consequence of that, we're launching something. I say launching, we're working through a process to effectively figure out what Flight Story's content engine is. And do we start really grassroots, where we bring together different creators in a collaborative environment and use them across multiple accounts, creating in different ways? We kind of think of it as a creator house. That's one avenue we might go down. The other avenue is working with contractors in a similar capacity. It's less of a commitment from us. We probably get a bit more variety in what we do, but get a similar outcome. And I do remember even going back 5 years ago, we would often think about bringing creators into our process as early as ideation. It's not always feasible or viable commercially for agencies to do that. But I was always a big believer that we, getting closer to the source of truth, we would do our best work. Also, I meant to mention, I'm going to read this. I read an article I thought was super interesting. It was from The Drum. And the article was about out of home. And the headline was 7 out of 10 out of home ads don't work. 7 out of 10 out of home ads don't work. I thought, what bullshit. Way more than that. Way more than that. I'd be surprised if 1 out of 10 works optimally effectively. But I do think it's symbolic of a broader point. In a world geared by algorithms, it feels like marketing is becoming a zero-sum game in the sense that that one thing that works derives all the value. And the way that I would often describe the state of play is, historically, you could do a 6 out of 10 on the content spectrum, meaning 6 out of 10, it invoked a reaction out of you. You know, you laughed, you maybe got angry, you got inspired, you got educated, pick your emotion. And if you were a 6 out of 10, in a more level world, that would work, and it would mean something to enough people. In a world geared by algorithms, it's only the 9s and 10s that garner all the attention, that send the signals to the algorithms that this is a worthy thing to distribute far and wide. So how do you think about your creative process now, knowing you deal particularly in, let's say, by and large, B2B and against a very focused audience, developers, with a very complex product, knowing the landscape favors certain content formats, certain extremes? How do you behave differently?
I think one thing I'll say with billboards is I feel like there has been an increased relevance in billboards over the last maybe 2 or 3 years. I think as a response to the kind of ubiquity of digital advertising. We spoke last week about saying that when you see AI art in an advert, it is the brand signaling that they have no budget, they have no money. I think on the other end of that, when you see a big billboard, it's the brand signaling they have a lot of money, they have a lot of budget. And it is a signal that this is a product that we are serious about. And I think to your point, probably more than 7 out of 10 of billboard adverts don't work. But the top 9, 1 out of 10 that do, or the top 2 out of 10 that do, I think they work on a bigger scale than the best digital ads do, because there is this much greater mind share. Like for example, I live in Brooklyn. I'm surrounded by, you'll be familiar, that kind of end of town where it's just hand painted billboards everywhere, and most of them have become like wallpaper to me. But I walk past every single day I walk past the Match.com advert, which says, if all they talk about is crypto, invest in yourself. And it's some kind of suggestive portrait. I won't go into too much details there of exactly what it is, but it's so intensely memorable and has a lot of cultural cachet. If you Google that billboard, it was covered in a lot of ads. It's been up for like a year now. And that ad is like ingrained into my brain, into my conscience. I like associate the area with it. I associate that part of town. And I think billboards are hugely important digital mediums, because for a creative in this day and age who might make something that will get tested in a Facebook ad and then discarded and will be optimized, hyper optimized, and the copy will be changed. A billboard ad is an opportunity for someone to create something, to create a work of art that they can't reverse and that they throw into the world, right? It's like the opposite of what we're used to in advertising today. And so I think they have huge cultural importance for that reason. And the best billboard ads win big because they have just a greater mind share, and the brand is putting they're taking a bigger risk. It's a bigger bet. You can't recoup that investment. It's there. You can't suddenly decide to take it down because it's not converting.
I like that. Sorry, I was just going to say, I like the point about taking big bets. There is something about big media plans that force you to push your creative endeavors. Sadly, I think too many people pursue or accept mediocrity with out of home. In the same way our digital life, you described it there, we see so many ads, zero are memorable, very few I could tell you what I read or what I've seen today. I could probably tell you about something I see often, a piece of out of home that was somewhat memorable. So I agree, and we have this they call it out of phone phenomena, where great ads will then live and earn attention through LinkedIn feeds and beyond. And it reminds me, I started my career in traditional media, and there was always a vanity. I was selling radio advertising, and there was always this prestige about being on TV. And TV was the signal to the world that you're legitimized. However, often in radio, not that radio is insignificant, you would have Coca-Cola paired next to Larry's Wheels. And there was always, because it was more accessible. But you'd never see Larry's Wheels, or maybe you would on ITV these days. Local TV. Point still stands, though. There is something about big bets that I think I admire. But when you think of all that context and you're developing your marketing plans and strategies for Third Web, is it influencing you at all?
I think a lot about distribution now, where we're not the kind of brand who it would ever make sense to run on a billboard, right? And so we will never really benefit from these kind of big brand campaigns. But I remember recently having a conversation about paid advertising, where they, we do a lot of organic content. We're doing a lot of SEO. We're doing a lot of YouTube. We've never really done paid ads until this year. We've started running them recently. And the way we think about paid ads is like billboards. They're low converting, but high awareness ways for us to reaffirm the message we might have already sent on Twitter, or the message we might have already sent on LinkedIn. And we have like good targeting down now, where we can take an existing email newsletter. We can, target our customers, but also target people who interact with our socials. And we see these as like billboards. Let's throw out a bunch of billboards so that we're constantly top of mind for people. But we know just historically in our industry, they don't necessarily convert that well. They get a lot of views, impressions. They actually get a lot of clicks through to our page, but the actual conversion down the funnel is quite low. And so,
what platforms are you playing in, if you don't mind me asking? Are you talking primarily Meta and X, or are you YouTube?
LinkedIn is actually one of our biggest spaces. They actually have a really good ad product. They crazy low CPCs that we've spent a bunch of time optimizing. Main reason because we're blocked from running Meta ads. Not blocked for any real reason. We're just going through we actually can run ads, but we just have to go through a lengthy process to unblock that, which we're in the middle of. And so we do anticipate it will be the best. We know it's the best ad product, so we're going aggressively in that direction. Google, we're also not able to run ads for a different reason. Is because we use a certain AI tool on our website for customer service that Google has blocked. So that's just something else we're having to figure out. And then Twitter ads.
Sure.
Can you get on the phone?
My guys. Hey, Google.
You did lead. Twitter ads, I will say, are the worst performing ads I've ever run in my life. So I'll leave you with that.
What a bombshell. You just snuck that one in there. Mr. X himself says Twitter ads, X ads are the worst. And there's me a few months ago speculating the indistinguishable ad was going to be optimally effective, considering the boycott on platform and how ad marketplaces work. I assumed that you may see some results, but
so did I.
That's why marketing is wonderful. It's in part science and in part magic. Some things you just don't forget easy.
Yeah.
Why did it work?
Yeah.
Okay, dude. Let's wrap up. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you about creative principles. Just to conclude, I've been seeing a lot of adverts and copy advice and best practice and examples of great work, and I think we all enjoy looking at those and get inspired. And great work when you go, A, it makes you feel something, and B, as a marketer, you go, I wish we did that. Funnily for us at Flight Story, we have a couple of pitches in the pipeline where we're strongly leaning into creative work, and I touch wood that some of it comes off, because it's the type of work that you want to live in the world, that will make an incredible case study. It's the type of stuff that you would get proud of to see it out in the wild. But side point, I wanted to get your take on creative principles and formats that work very well. So I'll give you an example. The formats that turn bias on its head. So you will see time and time again around, let's say, a topic like mental health. It challenges our stigma. So the person smiling at the front of the camera and the person moody in the background, and there'll be a subtle play either in the video or in the, copy that suggests it's not what you think. The person that's smiling is actually the one in pain. And it challenges those prejudices and stereotypes that we all have. So it's the classic turning bias on its head. You also then have all the formats that are identity-based, rooted in kind of social vernacular. I'm in this era. I'm the CEO of Best Life, main character energy. All those formats, I call them identity formats. Give me Catman's favorite format that almost works every time.
As you're asking that, I was thinking of a framework. Actually, I don't have necessarily a solid format. I can give you. Maybe I'll think of it as I give you this framework. But I read a book once that was called Sticky. It was about how to make ideas that stuck with people. And I think it's the same question you're asking, and it really resonated with me. And they had this. It was called the Success Framework, but success with one S at the end. And it was basically these are the things you need for a good idea, which I think is obviously like, open to interpretation. But I remember it really resonating with me. And the first one was simple. So if somebody needs to explain an idea to you and it takes them, over 30 seconds, over a minute, it's usually a signal that this isn't something that's going to immediately fly. The best ideas I think I've ever seen, you kind of just get in a sentence. What's that TV advert where they threw 1 million bouncy balls down a road? Take Sony Bravia. Let's take 30,000 bouncy balls, throw them down the road in San Francisco. Brilliant. That simplicity, I think, is really important. The second one is unexpected, which I think is something you talk about a lot, right? The old bait and switch. You take someone down a path that they're going down, and then you hit them with an unexpected idea. I think the one I saw recently, which we talked about a few episodes ago, was Norwich City did an ad on men's mental health, and you watch the ad and you see one of the fans is not having a good time. They seem sad, they seem upset, and the other fan is loving it, hands in the air, like having a great time. And then you're expecting the whole time watching this ad that the person who's sad is probably going to, suddenly not be there. He's going to have, done something. And then at the end of the ad, the guy's really happy. He's actually the one who was having trouble and committed suicide. Yeah, and that unexpectedness was just a way that really, it kind of ingrained that advert into your head. So the unexpected is one. Concrete was the next one, SUC, which is giving someone like a very tangible idea of what your product is. I think is something that, can be lost a lot of the times. Like, is this, I think Apple do a good job in a lot of their earlier marketing where they're really kind of contextualizing their products and you really feel, why it is something that's going to level up my life. What was the next one? SUCC, credible. And so does your idea come from a source that's actually credible? And so this one is less creative, but more about what is the basis of your idea, or are there some statistics that back it up? Emotions is the next one.
I think you could interpret, sorry to interrupt, you could interpret credible as any kind of stamp of authority. That could be the TV placement, gives credibility to it, the placement itself.
Yep.
That could be the celebrity endorsee. That could be the data of scientists that validate the claim that you're making. So I think there's ways to interpret a framework like this that tick those boxes, right?
Absolutely. Even the quality of production, right? If you're watching a beautifully made ad, you immediately assume it comes from a credible source, and if it's not, then it's probably not. Next two ones, again, like emotions, so making people feel something, again, something we talk about all the time. Same, it's very, you can say the same about the Norwich ad. How have you pulled an emotion? And then the final one was story, which again, something we talk about a lot. Are you telling a story? Are you taking someone on a journey? And so, I remember reading that, and it just really, I think if an idea hits all those things, it's going to win. You probably don't have to hit all those. You'll probably have to hit 3 or 4, but I remember that being a really good framework that stuck with me.
I love it. I think it's a wonderful framework. And the first one around, and you'll know this going through the creative process, you kind of, when you know. Sometimes the first thing you say ends up being the thing that you should invest all your energy into. And I realize there's a real skill in having the conviction to find the thing that you go all in on. We do creative sessions, and we might result in 20 to 30 possible avenues or routes to pursue. And I'd certainly say experience helps, but when you have a good intuition, and experience, intuition, or gut is often something that's dismissed, but fundamentally gut is a lifetime of experiences and observations and reflections. When you have that gut, I believe in going with that first idea. But I like the idea also of having something objective that you measure your standards by, a framework that says, do we tick 3 of these boxes? And that's almost the guardrail to mean that, we're delivering work that has impact. And even if you create a simple version of that for social media, it's probably really solid guidance.
a really quick anecdote. I remember when we were working throughout the Brita campaign we did, No Filter, No Future, which again we talked about a few episodes ago. We were looking for the name, the hashtag for this campaign. We were sat in a room and we were kind of throwing around like probably crappy ideas. And then one of our interns, I think he'd been with the team like 3 weeks. He kind of said, no filter, no future. Then somebody else said something else and moved on. And I was like, hold on, I'll go back. I was like, that's it. Like, that's it. It's no one, that's it. Look, we're not going to get anything better than that. And I remember thinking, because they were an intern, everybody just moved on. Nobody gave their idea the authority it deserved. You know what I mean? And like, if I had said that, I think, because I was the creative director at the time, I think everyone would have said, that's it, let's move on. I remember having to stop everyone and go, actually, that's the best idea. Like, because they don't hear that. But I think...
But that's often your role, right?
Feeling.
If you're... Yeah, as the creative lead, that's the voice a creative lead should do. You're there to drive the group think that leads, but you're also there to be decisive. I often believe that the creative process, in part, should be incredibly democratic. In part, it should be completely totalitarian, and this is it. Because you do have, when you work in subjectivity, it's interesting. You were describing that, and I reflect on some of our client sessions, and we might have like an hour and a half booked in to keep going through ideas, and someone will say something, and there's part of me in the back of my mind going, that's the one, we're going to go with that. I think let's just all get 5 minutes back, we're going with that, but we're going to do the theatre and carry on. I was like, that's the idea. Let's back up. Cool. All right, brother. Good to chat to you, my man. Next week is a special episode. It's our breakout moment where we make it into the 1%. Believe it or not, the 1% club. We join the bankers. We join the Illuminati. 1% of all podcasts never make it through to episode 23. So it is a breakout moment for us. I say 99% of podcasts don't.
Can't wait. See you then.